Hello and welcome. I'm Fuzzy Logic and I am playing Solve. So today I am going to look at the army of the Elven Conclaves. Let's do a run through, have a look at their units and what I think of them, and then a couple of builds afterwards. So a 3 commander army here. Have to with the supporters pack. But yeah, so let's start with the noble. Again, the special mount is the griffin, but yes, the noble anyway. She is probably she is the second most choppy character in the game, second only to the abyssal lord who trumps her. I think. So 5 skill, 4 power, 4 defense. Only with the shield though. 3 attacks, 3 wounds, 9 discipline. Um, Weapons wise, you probably want to go great weapon. Get a little more power in that hit. Does leave her vulnerable in a duel with her lower defense, but high skill. Hopefully you're not getting hit 3 times, and hopefully you are doing the hitting and killing in round 1. That's what you want. Two-hand weapons is the other option. You could go with that and cruelty. But the build with the other main thing about her is Elven Mastery. Reroll missed attacks rolls. So that is a built-in reroll on attacks, which is lovely. So it's nice to have. So you've got the hitting as short as you can. So what you want is more attacks and more powerful attacks. Hence why I generally run the great weapon. So my inclination would be to also throw Relentless. Although you can do many things with this, just don't take True Strike because she has it built in. Relentless and Cruelty are both, and Flame Tongue if you want plus more power, all valid choices. I lean on Relentless, and if you really want a choppy one, Unnatural Power. Gives her a smidge more defense in the duel and also brings her up to strength 6, 7 on the charge, which is rather nice. 4 attacks. You're hoping to kill enemy commanders in a single turn now, and you just need to survive theirs. And with the maneuverability of a griffin, who has skill 4, power 5, 5 defense, 3 attacks, 5 wounds, 8 discipline, maneuvers you around the battlefield. You want to pick your fights, try and go into flanks. With the reliability of damage out the top, you should do. You should be winning combats and hoping people flee, or assassinating characters. Other things you can do. Very nice hero. Um, Not the most expensive while still doing a very good job. Still pretty pricey at her coming in. This is my tooled up version of her at 100. So that is still pretty pricey. Then you have the mage. Straight mage. I struggle to write lists for the mage. A relatively expensive maginess in their own right. They are with swift and skill 4, power 3, defense 3, 2 attacks. Really don't want the fight. Skill 4 gives a smidge of defense, but it's really not enough to keep them alive. Um, the spell choice is not the greatest. You got a couple of damage options. Divine Favor, +1 skill, and reroll failed disciplines is hard to use. Well, I don't think it's that great. Uh, Radiant Shield, reroll defense. Now that's interesting. Arcane Web, again hard to use, but can be used quite effectively. And Frost Ward is an interesting one. I have seen it used very well actually. +1 to save rolls. So if you are only getting a 4 up, that will be brought down to 2 up, and suddenly you've got elves with good defense, which is a novelty. Um, so yeah, an interesting one. I think harder to write a list for. And then we have the Spellsword, who is a very interesting character, being one of the hybrid spellcasters fighters. Um, weapon wise, you can go from hammer weapon, shield, great weapon, two-handed. Generally run two-handed, I think. Spell wise, a bit more limited, but some good spells here. Fiery Blaze is a unique one, +1 power for the next combat, so you can stack these on all your units. They don't stack on the same unit, but put it on each one of your units in preparation for the fight, and then the first time they fight, they'll get that power. So something you can be doing in the lead up to your fights. Divine Favor, again, don't rate it very highly. Radiant Shield is good, and Fireball is, I mean, a spiky but can be good spell. And you can only take one spell on this character. Personally, I am a sucker for Cruelty and Fireball. Your skill 5, you hit pretty well. Two-hand weapons, 4 attacks, and Cruelty affect Fireball, so you're suddenly power 5 hits with them re-rolling saves. So that is quite a nice combo. Again, this one, all of them can fly a griffin, and the rest are just their standard retinues. But I quite like the griffin on this one. Okay, so to the battle line. Battle line, we have spears, which are the same as Wood Elf spears. 8 points a model. It's not bad. They're not a bad little unit. Skill 4, power 3, defense 4. So they're quite defensive as a unit. 1 attack, 1 wound, 8 discipline. The only thing that's a bit of a shame is they have spears, but if you're running the unit, you're probably running it cheap because you want the cheapest unit in the battle line, and so you're not getting the spear bonus with extra ranks. But yes, with discipline 8 and good defensive stats, you're hoping they stand around and poke a few things and do a few wounds, really. Then we have the City Guard, which is just a nicer version of the spears. So basically, they are the same as the spears, but they come with longbows, which is very nice. It gives a hybrid unit. 11 points model is a bit more expensive, but you just shoot people on their way in, and then it's a pretty tanky and solid unit in the fight. If you can run 15s, run them deep, and then you get a nice wedge of attacks to try and fend off your enemies. It is a nice unit, although you pay for what you get, so it is not the cheapest. And then finally you have Weapon Masters, which are a very cool unit. So great weapons, swift, heavy armor, so standard movement with these two. Elven Mastery is rerolls attacks to hit. Skill 5, power 4, defense 4, 1 attack, 1 wound, 8 discipline. Solid. Very solid unit. You can put halberds on them. With the reliability of hitting, it's not terrible, but I think Great Weapon is most of the times better. You are strength 5 on the charge, so it's just flat better against anyone defense 4 or below. Strength 5, it's the same on the charge as a halberd. Strength 6 is when the defense 6 even is when the halberds start making it money. But it's a bit too situational where the great weapon is always good. So I'd take the great weapon personally, and he's an expensive unit at 12 points model. We've got a decent amount of staying power with defense 4, but quite pricey. Not my favourite in the core. So now onto range support. So we've got standard elf archer, skill 4, power 3, defense 3, 1 attack, 1 wound, 8 discipline, longbow, and swift. So it's a good shot. It's a good set of shots. I mean, if you can run the Elf City Guard instead, 10 points more, but exactly the same, except you get a defense and you have spears if you have enough of them. So they aren't as good as that, but they can still fight reasonably well with skill 4, keeps them defended and can do a bit of damage out. So not the worst. And we got the two other options, the Elven Watchers, which are the slightly cheap and worse cousins of the Rangers, or the Wood Elves. So they have all the same gear, two hand weapons, longbow, swift, scout, and ambush, and the same stat line with skill 4, power 3, defense 3, 2 attacks because of the pairs, 2 hand weapons, 1 wound, and 9 discipline. So a solid stat line, but they don't have rerolls to hit and ranged. So that definitely loses them something. Um, they are cheaper at 13 points a model, um, and they're okay. It's I find they are extremely vulnerable to shooting, so it's kind of hard to take them. I find in comparison to the other options, because that is 5 wounds and they will die very easily. And if you buff up the unit, then it suddenly gets very expensive and still dies very easy to range. And they are only strength 3. They're shooting and ranged, so some things they're just not very effective against. And finally, you have the bolt thrower. Bolt thrower is again an interesting piece. It's lethal shots, 3 shots at skill 3, at skill 4 even. The important things. It's I mean, it can fight at, say, a very small thing that comes in to fight it at skill 4, gives it a bit of defense. It can hold off, and discipline 8 is not the worst. But it's, well, yeah, mostly for the shooting, as you'd expect. And it is okay at that. Positioning is the hardest thing to do with it. You've got to set it up right at the beginning. But if you take out a couple of knights, then suddenly you're working towards your points back, and if it's sitting at the back, it can be defended quite well. So yeah, not a bad piece, and does counter some of the tougher targets that you might face. And then we've got fast attack. Quite a lot of options in the fast attack. First, we have the Elven Lancers at 21 points a model. They come with the lance and shield, swift, heavy armor, which cancel out but give you the +1 defense, cancel out movement. 4 skill, 3 power, 5 defense, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, 8 discipline. A solid cavalry unit. Quite tanky, decent on the charge, skill 4 and power 5 on the charge. Afterwards, they lack punch because they're only power 3. But, I mean, if you can break someone on the charge, that's great. And it's good flank protector, 105 points, so 21 points model, not the worst. Not particularly my favourite, but yeah, not the worst. Then we have the Reavers, who I don't like, unfortunately. So, a 19 points model, hand weapon, short bow, swift. So, skill 4, power 3, defense 3, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, 8 discipline. So they are the unarmored version of their lanced friends, but they come with a short bow. Again, like the other fast cav with short bow, I just think it leaves them somewhat vulnerable. You need to be in decent range, and then people are often, well, it's not the easiest unit to look after. And at defense 3, it is vulnerable to shooting, and yeah, they come with hand weapons and skill 4, so in combat they can put out a bit of damage, but basically charging into front of anything probably won't go well. So you need a flank, and even that is, it is not the scariest of units, and I don't like them in particular. So then we are onto the chariot. Now I do like the chariot, so it gives some high strength, which is something the army doesn't have a huge amount of into the army. So it is skill 4, power 3, defense 5, 3 attacks, 5 wounds, 8 discipline. Hand weapon and crushing charge give strength 6 on the charge, 5 attacks, and swift gives you a nice little extra bit of range, so you can outrange your standard enemy cavalry, which is nice. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's tankier, one of the tankiest units in the army you can get. Still not the tankiest, but that's an elf for you. and can do some good damage. 55 points is not a bad price to pay for that. And then finally have the Eagles. Same price as the Chariot, faster with flying, not as powerful on a charge with, uh, but can be more maneuverable and fly over things. So you get skill 4, power 4, defense 4, 3 attacks, 4 wounds, discipline 9. Claws and flying. So claws makes strength 5 on the charge, and 3 attacks. So it's not very offensive. Again, you don't want to be front charging anyone with this. You want flanks, you want to hunt war machines, you want to, generally stay out of reach but threaten. But yeah, they are vulnerable to shooting, so you've got to look after them. Yeah, and that is the army. So let's look at a couple of my lists. So we have what I've called the flying circus here. I've been playing around with this one a little bit, so I have put in the elf watchers as so one of the things that you will struggle with elf play is the new objectives. New, they're not that new, but the objectives where you want to go and fight for the objectives that are worth points. Elves in general want to shoot more, so I've tried to adapt the lists a bit to be more able to fight for at least one of the objectives that are on the map. And so this is what I've come with. We've got an extremely choppy Lord with unnatural power and relentless. He is the bite of the list. He is consistent. I should say. Damage output. An excellent piece that can fly around. You need to be a bit careful with the fights you choose and not getting too shot. But if you can choose those, you're in pretty good stead. The core I've gone for is 15 City Guard. Very solid unit. Does good shooting. Just can hold a point reasonably well, which is why I've taken that in particular. We've got the Elven Watchers, which are an interesting one. You could take the Bolt Thrower. It's more damage out. This relies on hiding in cover more and has a tendency to be shot off, but can fight better. So pick your poison when it comes to that. And then a maneuverable eagle paired with the griffin. Try and protect him while he does his job of chopping through some stuff. So if I need to threaten another unit that was about to counter the noble, and the eagle will be doing that job. It may well not survive the encounter, but if he saves the griffin and the griffin can fly off and pick another fight, that will be a win. And then finally we've got the chariot, which I really like. Good impact. Bit tougher, can hold a little longer. So now we're on to the mage build. It's probably my least favourite of the elf builds. I've gone full shooting here. Again, bigger block of Elven City Guard. The mage with a few archers. Fireball to give more ranged output, and bolt thrower to try and maximise damage from range. The Elf City Guard can fight. The chariot is hopefully a clean-up crew for something that's been shot down a fair amount on the way in, or can be threatening and delay the fight. But yeah, and Radiant Shield as well to make those Elf City Guards or the chariot last, hopefully longer, until, fingers crossed, they can win their fights. And finally, we have the Spell Swords, who I do quite like. It's similar flying list to the noble, but this time we've gone Fireball, Potion of Power, and Cruelty. So she's more one-off in the damage department. So that's suddenly she becomes Strength 6, 7 on the charge with 4 attacks. So if we need to fight a hero, that's how we try and kill them in a turn. With Cruelty, they're rerolling saves. Fireball, with rerolling saves, hopefully does some good damage, flying the Griffin for maneuverability. 2 Eagles again to help her do her job and generally threaten and try and slow down your opponent. And then the fire from the front from the 2 units of archers and the city guard being there to hold their spears and hopefully give people a bit more of a fight as needed. But there you go. So those are my lists and the Elven Conclaves. It's not my favourite army, to be honest. I think the general move towards objective, which I think is a good thing, has disadvantaged them in general because they struggle to fight as much for it. But it yeah, no, I still think they can play, and you can play some knightly lists and rely on the knights who can do good work. So yeah, there you go. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the rank ladder.